Thanks, Steve. Too kind. Well, good morning. How is everybody? Good? Feeling good? We're going to have a bit of fun today. We'll get these slides up and running, and then I'll just grab a clicker off Steve. So what I might get you to do just right now, I know you've got up and jumped and had a chat around the room, but maybe just at the table right now, just buddy up with someone at the table, say g'day, introduce yourself if you don't yet know them, and share with them what you are looking forward to out of the next 2 days. So you can go ahead and do that right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honour to be here on behalf of the Western Sydney Business Centre and Breakthrough for Business. I'm always very excited when I get a phone call from Stephen with regards to any events that he's running, but especially this one because being the first of its type in this area is a very exciting place to be. And you know, things always start small, tend to grow, especially when they've got high quality. I've seen events like this all around the world, and I've spoken to rooms of many, many, many more people, but it's always exciting to be on that first page of the story, which is where you are today. So congratulations for being here. Can I get a show of hands? Who's heard this phrase before in business? Cash flow is king. Who's heard that before? Okay, all of us. Now, I'm here to suggest that not only is cash flow king, but cash flow is queen and every other piece on the chessboard as well. Cash flow is the oxygen of any business. But every time I talk to new or smaller businesses, there's always the same challenge. And I was surprised to find that this challenge extends through to larger businesses as well. You get stuck in a vicious cycle of cash flow. I'm not sure if anyone here can relate to this. It starts off with you need to find customers. Where am I going to find customers? And that's the first half of the cycle. And then you find those customers, and then you're making a sale, delivering the product or delivering the service. And then you get just enough oxygen to do it all again. Find some customers, make a sale. Find some customers, make a sale. Before you know it, you're stuck in this spiral of cash flow, just trying to get enough customers to keep your head above water financially. Okay, I'm not going to ask if anyone can relate to this, because I don't want you to have to put up your hand, but I know it's something that I see over and over again, and I can already see some heads nodding. So the question is, how do we cut through the middle of this cycle? How do we cut through it and move forward? It's very simple. It's one step at a time. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, as entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, CEOs, wherever you might be in the workplace, quite often we get invited to events like this, or we see training videos online, and we get excited about what we see. We see some shiny objects, and it's like, okay, we need to be doing that. And then what happens the next day? The next thing comes along, and then we're distracted, and now we're over here working on something else. And all of a sudden, we're spending time on tasks that we really don't need to be spending time on. You're going to see some great material over the next 2 days, but think of it like a buffet. We're just going to take a walk past the buffet table. I don't want you to go past and consume all the foods as we go through today, but what I want you to do is to just take note of what we talk about. And then at the end of the 2 days, you can have a look back and you can think, which of these one things do I want to implement in my business first? Let the buffet begin. So here's what we're going to cover today. The first thing is we're going to take a look at ideal customers. And it's funny because I didn't talk to Stephen about this, but already today we've heard discussion about sacking non-ideal customers. And that is a great place to be. But in tangent with that, we're also going to talk about who is your ideal customer for your business. We're going to talk about the psychology behind websites, but this is stuff that you can move across to any area of your business, including marketing. We're going to look at how to build a website, how to put things together. And we're also going to take a look at what to say, because languaging is very important. And one thing that I've learnt is I cannot say the same thing to my wife as I do to my mates down at the pub. Is that a fair comment? And it's an honest mistake that we make in business. But what I want you to do right now is turn to that person next to you on the table that you introduced yourself to before. Turn to them right now. And I want you to put your hand on their shoulder. Do that right now. Turn to the person next to you. Put your hand on their shoulder. Yep. I'm not going anywhere until we do it. I want you to look them in the eye, and I want you to say to them, "Don't touch me." You don't have to hold on. That's okay. That's okay. Okay, first things first, let's start with a story. And I want to tell you the story about Pat. And Pat was a business client of mine, a consulting client many years ago. And we lost touch through time. But we caught up again very recently, and Pat came up to me and he gave me a hug. He's not a hugging type of person, so I kind of found this a little bit strange. And Pat said to me, "I want to make an apology to you, Pete." Okay, what's that? He said that when I was consulting him in the early stages of business, and he had a property investment and education business, he said, when you were consulting me in the early stages of business, you told me an idea which I glossed over, I ignored, I didn't do anything about it until several years later, just recently, in fact 6 months ago. I said, "What happened 6 months ago?" He said, "I took that one piece of advice and turned it into $200,000 of additional profit, that is cash in my pocket, on that one idea." Do you want to know what the idea was? Okay, I hope so. 3 people do, that's great. Do you want to know what the idea was? Okay, excellent. That was a bit more enthusiastic. So Pat's background was in the military, in the armed forces. And I asked him, this is back in the original days, I said, "Why are you doing what you're doing now with regards to the property education and investing?" He said, "I realised in the military I was earning good money, but then every time I came home I was just spending it. I was blowing my cash. And it wasn't until late in my career that I realised I could take that money, I could invest it and give myself a nest egg post-military retirement." So my suggestion to him was, "Pat, there's many people in the property investment and education space, but I don't know one who specialises in property investment and education for people in the military or the armed forces. Why don't you become that guy? The one of one. Not the one of many, the one of one." Yeah, no worries. And that was it. We talked about many other things which helped him get some cash flow and make some sales. But it wasn't until several years later that he got himself just enough oxygen to go, "You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to do this." And changing that one thing, he went from struggling to put people in rooms and struggling to make some sales to filling rooms up all the time and making big time sales because he became the go-to guy in that space. So what we're trying to find for you today is who is your ideal customer. And your ideal customer is someone that you want to be attracting into your business, but they're also wanting to attract your business into their life. You see, for the most part as business owners, we get distracted with the fact that we're trying to make a sale. We're trying to make enough money to put food on the table, support our families, whatever it might be for you. But realistically, if you flip that thinking overnight, your business will change. How do we do that? You go from thinking, how do I make a sale, to starting to think about your ideal customer. And in your business, honestly, who thinks here they have a desirable product or service that they think there's people somewhere out there in the world that either want this, need this, or it'll make a massive positive impact on their life, either professionally, financially, personally? Who's got one of those businesses? Not all of you? Okay, there's a few that are still unsure about their own business. That's okay, but most of you is good. Because if that's the case, you now have a responsibility to share your business with those people out there. Because if they don't find your business, they will spend their money or their time somewhere else. And if your business is that good, they're going to waste their money or their time somewhere else. It's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? So you want to make it as simple as possible and as clear as possible for your ideal customer to connect with you. Remove the confusion. It's as simple as that. We're trying to be so many things to so many people that we're completely missing our ideal customers. We can't see the forest for the trees. So people often say, okay, that's great. Give me a real world example. So the question is, what businesses do this? What businesses target ideal customers? Is it just small businesses? And the answer is no. Have a look up at the screen right now. And I know the image is a little bit washed out on the screen and somewhat small, but does anyone recognize any of these advertising campaigns? Does anyone recognize them? Okay. This one's pretty obvious. Down, down, prices are down, right? It's Coles. Pay particular attention next time you watch a Coles ad. Now let me ask you this question. Who is Coles' ideal customer? I'll give you a clue. It's not Stephen Dixon and it's not me. Do you see us in those ads? They're women. How old are they? Middle-aged? Do you know anything about their families, thinking about the ads that you've seen on TV? Young kids? Exactly. She's got Huggies in the trolley. Notice she's got, you can see value packs sticking out and big things of oil, which says she buys in bulk. She shops less. She buys lots. This is their ideal customer. Why do they specifically target them? Because there's the most value and return on their investment for specifically targeting that ad group. So if we go after that exact demographic, we know we're going to get a better return on our investment for our advertising dollars. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. You know, they're not trying to advertise down, down, prices are down, blocks of Cadbury's chocolate to Donald Trump and his mates, are they? Like, we laugh about it, right? And yet in our own business, we make this mistake all the time. Here's another company that does it really well. This one's a little bit more obscure. If you can see the screen there, can anyone yell out what these screenshots are taken from? Which company's ads? Sportsbet. Who's their target market? It's not the same ladies in Coles down, down, prices are down, is it? Lonely men. Generally single or with a girlfriend, young blokes down at the pub having a good time, love their Barbies. Naive. But that's their target audience. They're being very specific. And we in our own businesses every day, I'm going to pitch to you in a second to say you need to be very specific on who you're targeting with everything that you do and say in your business. And you're going to say to me, yeah, but Pete, what if Mrs. Mayfair, the 70-year-old down the road, misses out? No. If Mrs. Mayfair wants to get on the punt, she'll still get on the punt. They're peripherals to your business. They will still find you. They'll still find you. But if you put in a room with targets, and each of those targets have a different monetary value, the big ones are worth not very much, and the very small ones are worth a lot more, would you rather go in there with a shotgun, a blindfold, spin around and just start shooting? Or would you rather go in there with the latest sniper rifle with a laser scope and a tripod and a remote trigger? That's what I'm telling you to do in your business today. Let's go in there and target specifically. The peripherals will find you, but don't confuse your ideal customers. This is all about targeted marketing. Man who shoots at no targets is bound to hit it. You know, if we know exactly where we're going, we've got a much better chance of getting there. Okay, so the question is, Who is your ideal customer? I'm just going to throw a couple of ideas out there. They're pretty random. Let's see if they resonate at all. Number one is they're looking to buy and they have money. Give me a show of hands. This is an honesty test. Who has ever dealt with someone that you speak with them, they're a brilliant prospect, you think they're going to be a wonderful customer, they're saying all the right things, and then it comes time to paying and they haven't got any money? Who's ever dealt with those people? Wow, I saw some hands shoot up there. Whew. Yep. So let's target people who are looking to buy and have money. That's a good idea. Number two, who has the cheapest customer acquisition costs? You have the cheapest customer acquisition costs? Cheapest customer acquisition costs. Again, this is the shotgun versus the laser approach. And the great thing is, we're going to talk about Facebook advertising over the next couple of days. And that's going to give you a really good background as to how that works. It's much easier and much cheaper for Coles to say, just advertise, for example, on Facebook to women aged 30 to 40 with children, married, in this suburb, with this income. Because if you just advertise to everyone, let's be honest, who makes the buying decisions in most families? The men don't make any decisions. Come on, let's be honest. The men think they make the decisions. The women let them think they make the decisions, but who's making the decisions? It's the women, right? I guarantee you it is. So why would we send a Coles ad out to old men when you're going to get 1 out of 100 that might respond to an ad, when you can send the same ad to 100 women in your exact demographic and 80 of them resonate with that same ad for the same spend? What about this one? Low maintenance and high lifetime value. Yep, we're certainly not talking about someone's ex-wife or ex-husband. I don't know why there's so many people laughing in the room. I'll leave that one alone. You want customers that are low maintenance, but also will have a high lifetime value. Actually, let's go back. Sorry, I missed one. Biggest brand advocates. There's one thing better than having an effective marketing campaign that you have to do yourself. And that's having someone else do that effective marketing campaign for you when it costs you nothing. On the flip side, they're paying you because they're one of your customers as well. You know who's really terrible at this? And sorry if there's anyone in the room that works for any of these companies. Telcos and health insurance companies. They spend so much time trying to acquire customers and they don't give a rat's if you leave and go somewhere else. Is everyone familiar with that? I don't get it. It's so much cheaper and so much more profitable to look after your ideal customers than it is to go trying to find new customers. One of my clients, a personal trainer, I talked to him about exactly this. His ideal customer profile is females, mid-20s, has a boyfriend, works in a professional job in the city, but they're after something to keep in shape, not to get in shape, something to keep in shape, and a social outlet. So he found an excellent core group of them. And after he did that, he was talking about, okay, where do we go for marketing now? I said, let them be your marketing. How do we empower them to go out and share this with other people? And that's exactly what he did. Took away all his other advertising, solely works off word of mouth, and that's his focus for his marketing. It works for his business. I don't know if it'll work for yours, but that's just an example. Okay, who's ever heard of this radio station? WIIFM. Tune in, WIIFM. A couple of you have kind of put your hands up. You're like, I haven't seen it like that before, Pete. WIIFM is the radio station that every single one of you has tuned into. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? So as business owners, as managers, we look out at prospective customers and we want to tell them all about us. Because I guarantee you, if you put the other hat on and you think when you're trying to buy something, you don't go to a company and go, I want you to tell me everything about yourself. You look at a company and you think, what's in this for me? So why can't we get our head around the fact that we need to do that for our own business, our own company? It's a tricky one, but one that we're going to work on. You'll see this slide again. Okay, let's think of websites for a second. And like I said, this relates to a lot of other things, but let's just think about websites just for a moment. And I've got likes and dislikes. And I always ask people, what do they like about websites? What do you dislike about websites? The much easier thing is to say, what do you dislike about websites? Because the flip side is usually what you do like. Okay, so have a think for a moment. Can I just get someone to yell out what you dislike about websites? Some websites. Too much text. What else? Pop-ups. Slow loading. Can't find their phone number. We'll talk about that. Good point. What else? Difficult navigation. What else? Ugly. Can't find what you're looking for. Be honest. As opposed to when I'm about to ask a question, I say lie for this one. No, be honest. Who has ever gone to a website when you're searching for something and clicked away within the first 10 seconds? Okay, keep your hand up for a second. Who here has clicked away within the first 5 seconds? Okay, hands down. Thank you. Which is pretty much everyone. So what you're telling me is what you like is a clean website that loads fast, that's easy to navigate, and you can find what you're looking for. Is that fair enough? Who is starting to squirm in their chair because you already realize your website sucks? Don't put your hand up. Yeah. Well, you're in the right place. And remember, it applies just as much for desktop as it does for tablet and mobile these days, and people forget that. So I don't have to ask this question anymore. On your website, how long do you have to get someone's attention? You've told me it's 5 seconds. 5 seconds. Why is it 5 seconds? We'll get into that detail in a second as well. Because it's the subconscious mind at work. Our brain creates shortcuts every single day. Because let's be honest, thinking about everything is hard work. Especially for men. So we make shortcuts. We make assumptions. And we do some things subconsciously. This one's a challenge. Let's see how I go. I've got to take a deep breath. Who here drives a manual car or can drive a manual car? Okay, someone said to me one day, Pete, explain to me in 30 seconds, if I don't know how to drive a manual, how to drive a manual car. You ready? You get in the car, you've got 3 pedals. On the left-hand side, there's a clutch. On the right-hand side, there's an accelerator. And in the center, there's a brake. You've got a handbrake in the middle, but you don't use the handbrake when you're driving. That's just when you're stopped, okay? Then you've got to put the key in the ignition. You turn the ignition. But before you turn the ignition on, you've got to have your left foot on the clutch. You don't use your left foot for the brake, just for the clutch. Put your left foot on the clutch. And then you've got a gear lever over here on the left. It's in a H configuration. Up to the left is first, second, third, fourth, fifth. R is not for race. R is for reverse. You can only use that going backwards, okay? You put your foot on the clutch. You put your gear into first gear. And then you slowly ease your foot off the clutch and you put your foot on the accelerator whilst you're releasing the handbrake at the same time. You turn the steering wheel. On the right-hand side, there's an indicator. You put the indicator off. I'm out of 30 seconds. Yep. But who thinks of every single one of those things when they drive a manual car? No, you don't. You do it subconsciously. It's something that we do. In fact, let me try something very quickly. Just grab your pen, bit of paper. Just write down on the bit of paper, just name a colour. Name a tool. Name a vegetable. Okay, great. What just happened then? I just asked you a series of questions that was so simple that your brain couldn't be bothered thinking about the answer. So every single one of you has just written down. I didn't see anyone sitting there going, vegetable. If I'm at Coles and I'm walking through the aisle, did anyone do that? No, you all took shortcuts. So honest show of hands, who wrote red? It's usually the most popular. For tool, who wrote hammer? And for vegetable, this is my favourite, who wrote carrot? And now, answer me out loud. Say it out loud. Use your voice. As soon as I say, name a piece of furniture. There was a few others, but I heard a lot of chairs, right? It's because our brain's making shortcuts. We're making connections without having to think. And people are doing that on your website and your business every day. So you need to think, where are people taking shortcuts when they look at you, when they talk to you, when they look at your business? And how do we use that to make sure that we make a better connection with them? Who here knows heuristic? I'm imagining you ladies probably know a little bit about this. This is a person coming to a conclusion, solving a problem based on previous experiences via shortcuts, which is an adequate solution. Okay, and we do that every day. Yep, so an example was what we just did. And here's another example. You've probably seen this before, the railway tracks. Okay, people call this an optical illusion. It's also a heuristic. So if I ask you, which yellow line is wider, the bottom one or the top one? Okay, I'm not going to ask you to answer because most of you have seen this before. You actually know that they're both the same. But even though you know they're both the same, when you look at it like that, your brain goes into shortcut mode. And it goes, oh, train tracks. That means it's three-dimensional. It's moving off into the distance. Even though it's not train tracks, it's just black lines. That's what your brain's thinking. It's train tracks going into the distance. There we go. So the yellow one is in between the tracks. The other one's wider of the tracks. So the one further up the page, the higher one, that must be bigger, right? Your brain just makes that shortcut. And it's so hard. Even looking at that now, who here is finding it difficult to look at that and go, I know they're the same, but it still doesn't look the same? Yep. Because your brain is overriding your conscious thought. Your subconscious heuristic is overriding your conscious thought. It's crazy, right? Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to point out how powerful this stuff is in your business. Pretty high level stuff, right? Very cool. Okay, let me talk about above the fold. Above the fold is an old newspaper term. You see, in the old days, when you put newspapers in a rack or the paper boy was waving them around in the air, they were always folded. And what was held in the air or on the rack generally determined whether or not people would buy that newspaper. And usually it was a headline or a photo. And so that was called above the fold. Today in websites, above the fold means what's on your device before you have to scroll. Now, why is it so important? Because you just told me a few minutes ago. You told me that you have 5 seconds. Now, in 5 seconds, people aren't scrolling through and seeing your whole page. They're not seeing how awesome your About Us page is or how incredible your product page is unless you get past that first 5 seconds. The most important part of your website is what's above the fold on any device. There's 3 questions you have to answer. Number 1, who are you and what do you do? Simple. Who are you and what do you do? You don't want confusion. Number 2, How do I find what it is that I'm looking for? Remember, we're thinking about your ideal customer here. Not anyone and everyone, just your ideal customer. How do I find what it is that I'm looking for? And the third one is what we've already mentioned, what's in it for me? I used to call that what's the next logical step in our relationship, but that's a little bit confusing and kind of weird. So I'll just go with what's in it for me. You want your ideal customer to come to your website, take a look at what's above the fold on the home page and say, I must have that now. It's a big stretch, but that's the goal. Can we do it? I think we can. I think we definitely can. If you think about it, just for your ideal customer. Remember, we're not trying to be everything to everyone, especially above the fold on the home page. We're just trying to connect with those people that have somehow come across your website, whether they've heard it as a referral, they've found it on Google, and above the fold they look at it and they go, I must have that. So here's some items for your home page, and you can see on the left-hand side there, the first thing is a phone number. Ta-ta-da! It's so frustrating if you're in a business where you need to talk to customers, for customers to have to look for things. Make it really simple for them. Really simple for them. Now, a mobile phone number is good, but studies have suggested that mobile phone numbers have been perceived by people as looking at it and saying this is a one-man operation or a one-woman operation. In some cases, that's very good. If you think, well, hang, I'm a tradie and I need my mobile phone, go somewhere like Skype and you can buy a landline phone number for a couple of bucks a year and you can have it redirected to your mobile phone. Spoiler alert, that's what I do. It's pretty simple. People think there's an office, away you go. Or I can forward it to whoever else I'm working with at the time as well. Make sure that you have simple navigation. We talked about that. Your USP, your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique for your ideal customer? But that usually comes out in the offer for the call to action. Because another mistake that we all make on our website is we don't ask for any action from the visitor. People get distracted, they click away. You know, they might have 247 tabs open in their browser. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, or if it really irks them when other people do that. So make sure you give them a good, obvious call to action up front. Some other items that you can include on your home page, and we'll look at this in some more detail as we go as well. One is your best links. If you don't have Google Analytics on your website, that's step one. Just write in big letters on your page and put stars around it, Google Analytics. If you know what your best links are, offer them for your visitor on your home page and make them big and bold and out there. Testimonials. There's a reason why every time you turn on home shopping channels or anything that's trying to sell a product in a long form on TV that they show testimonials. It works, and it has for a long time. People, your ideal customer wants to know that they're in the right place. You want them to read what you have, you want them to look at your website, and you want them to go, they know who I am. It's almost like they've got a hidden camera inside my room at my house because they understand me that well. If you've got trust, people will buy. Social proof. Let me ask you a quick question. Who here has ever travelled, been to a place that you didn't know, and you've gone for a walk down the street to try and find something for dinner? Yep, imagine that. You're walking down the street looking for something for dinner. You've looked into a restaurant and it's empty, and you've walked past. Who's ever done that? Okay, conversely, you've walked past, you've seen a restaurant full of people, and you've gone in. Who's done that? Okay, that's called social proof. Does that actually tell you anything about the food in those restaurants? It could just be a busload of tourists that's rocked up to this place. And now you're stuck behind a busload of tourists ordering crap food when the empty place next door is actually the best food in town. But it's social proof. So you need to build that in to your marketing and to your website. And finally, any awards. Be loud, be proud. Don't try and hide them in the background. Language and copy. If you do nothing else after this presentation, just go and have a look at the language and copy on your website and think to yourself, am I writing this as if I'm the customer asking what's in it for me? Or am I writing this as in, this is about us? And if you flip that and that alone, that'll make a huge difference in your website. Like I said, if your ideal customer is just as simple as a male versus a female, that's very different languaging on your website. I find it pretty easy to write copy for websites that are targeted to men, because I am one apparently. I find it a little bit more challenging to write copy for websites with ideal customers that are women, because I'm not sitting there thinking what's in it for me. It's very hard to, unless you're Mel Gibson in that movie, What Women Want, it's very hard for me to put myself in that space. So men, if your target audience is women, get some female help. Women, if your target audience is men, get some male help. But always write it, thinking your ideal customer is sitting there looking at this going, what's in it for me? So we've looked at ideal customers, getting specific. We've looked at the psychology of a website, what sort of elements we need, especially on the homepage of your website, and how we're going to communicate on our website. And those are the absolute fundamentals of where we need to start. So shall we get practical? Got very serious in here all of a sudden. Everyone's kind of sitting there stunned. So how about we get a little practical? I want you to take something home from my presentation. So I'm going to put you all to work. Everyone's like, no. Just make me rich. So we've already done that. We've already introduced ourselves, which is great. But what I might get you to do right now is we are going to buddy up. If you have an odd number on your table, the group of 3 is fine. If not, just pair up on your table. And once again, say hello. I know you've introduced yourself, but can you just, in 20 seconds or less, just give your elevator pitch for your business to the person next to you? Go. I hope you like the person sitting next to you. Who doesn't? Just checking. Okay, here's another thing we've already talked about this morning. Who's heard of the Pareto principle? Who's familiar with the Pareto principle? Okay, let me ask you another question. Who's heard of the 80-20 rule? Same. I just wanted to sound more professional, that's all. Is it working? Okay, good. Okay, the Pareto principle is the 80-20 rule. Now, I used to have my very own web development company. And my business mentor came to me one day, and I was working my buns off. I'm not sure if anyone can relate to this. I was in that cash flow cycle. Find clients, make a sale, make money. We were making good money, but I was working very hard. And one of the things my mentor noted was the fact that I was spending a lot of time on a lot of clients that were not very profitable for me. Who can relate? He suggested that I take an Excel spreadsheet and the bottom 50% of that spreadsheet, as in how much money they bring in, I fire the clients. I freaked out. He went on. He said, of that top 50%, you need to consider a few things. Which clients are you spending the least amount of time to get that return on? Which clients do you enjoy working with the most? And which clients are the biggest brand advocates? And then of that top 50%, we're going to get rid of, well, 60% of them, which is 30% of the 100% initially, end up with 20% of our clients. The next day, I sent out an email. I hit send and wished I'd set up Gmail undo send. I now have that on my email, by the way. I have a 1-minute buffer. If you don't have a buffer on your email, just Google how to put a buffer time on your email, because we all click send and have regrets later. Yep, like my first marriage. I'm just kidding. I've only been married once. Happily married. So a funny thing happened within a week. Within 1 week. I freaked out. Got rid of 80% of my clients. Oh, what was my email? No, my email was, it was based off the, kind of like a Tim Ferriss type email. Who's read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss? Okay, a few of you. Basically, one of the things that he suggests is, and I didn't know this at the time, this was when I was introduced to it, basically says something along the lines of, thanks so much, our company is headed in a different direction. We require this as a base requirement from all our clients now, which is a time and a financial commitment. So we don't offer more than this time for this amount of financial commitment. If you're not able to reach that, no problems. I can send you over here. And I actually forwarded on a lot of those clients to someone else who was actually more than happy to take them. Knew my situation. They were like, no problems. We'll take them on board because we've got a system to look after those people. Great. There's one clue. I didn't have the system properly installed at that stage. And a couple of them came back to me and said, no problems, we'll meet that line. But it was only like 1 or 2. And the rest of them said, you know, we've had a great time working with you. They were really polite. We wish we could stay. If you ever change, you know where to find us. And they were happy. I don't think I had, by memory, anyone that was upset about it. Not by memory. Certainly a week later, I didn't care. So a week later, I was earning more money than I was before I sacked the clients. And I was working 3 days a week. What happened? The clients that found out that I did this, that made the cut, said, oh, you've got free time, we've got more work. And then a couple of other clients who knew I was too busy jumped on board. And that's all it took. Now, that might not work with your business, and that's okay, but what scale can you use that on your business? You've already told me that you've got clients that are just time suckers. They're like that aunt at a Christmas party that's had too much red wine that puts you into the corner and tells you about their theory on life. Get out of my face. Be honest with yourself. But in our own heads, we justify it by saying, no, I need the money. I need the oxygen. I need the cash flow. If I don't have the oxygen, I won't survive. You don't need that oxygen. It's full of carbon dioxide. Cut it out. Free up some time to get better clients, ideal customers. So we're going to go back to this. Who is your ideal customer? Let me go through it again. They're looking to buy and they have the money. They have the cheapest customer acquisition costs, low maintenance and high lifetime value, and they're the biggest brand advocates. Ask yourself this question. What keeps your ideal customer awake at night? If it's money, which is what was mentioned here, I mean with regards to your product or service, by the way, with regards to your product or service, then you think, how can I help solve that? What are they looking for and how do I fill that gap? Okay. So we're going to do a bit of an activity now. And you're going to tell me the story of your ideal customer. Now, these are just a few ideas on the screen. Take out your pad and pen, and we might get a bit of music in just a second. And I want you to write down, have a bit of fun with this. I always suggest to people, you want to be super specific with your ideal customer. You know, to the point that you actually make them a person. They've got a name, an age, an address, marital status, shoe size, likes, dislikes. Why? Because if we know that specifically, we can target our marketing. There's no discussion around the boardroom table with regards to what do we do here. You know that we're, like, let's say your ideal customer is John Smith, 32, lives in Camden, married, 2 kids. He's a managing consultant at XYZ Widgets in Campbelltown. He hates his job, but he's stuck. He knows he can't move to another company and earn the same income. Yep. So forget about everything else that we've talked about. Sit down, take a couple of minutes. I'll come for a walk around if you've got any specific questions you'd like to ask. So here's a really good point that we've just come across at the front table. It's the confusion around, okay, who is it? Are they male or female? Are they which age? Just think to your actual business and think to who is making that purchasing decision right now. Who is making that purchasing decision right now? Like if you opened a spreadsheet, hopefully you know enough about your own businesses to understand who is that person that is the one that either gives the go-ahead to make the payment or is the one that's making the decision to make that payment. If you don't, you probably need to go home and do a bit of research, but have a bit of fun with this in the meantime. But that is a really good start. For a lot of companies that I work with, a really good base point is they actually think who is the best customer that they have in their business right now. And they actually make that person with some slight variations, you know, names are changed to protect the innocent kind of thing. So have a bit of a think about that. I'll keep wandering around anyway. I'll come over in a second, yeah. Some interesting discussions have come up, and I know they would. And you've probably noticed that I've given you probably less information than you think you actually need to complete this process. And that's deliberate because it's just to get your mind starting to think about the process. I know this happened for me, and this happens with a lot of my clients. All of a sudden, you sit there and you start to justify why you can't have one specific person as your target audience. Yeah, you start to justify in your own head that, no, it needs to be this for this person and this for that person. Just think back. Anytime you get stuck to Coles down, prices are down, and they're not advertising to teenage boys. Yeah? Just because you have the name and the age and where they live and what they earn doesn't mean your other customers won't find you. They're going to find you. All that does is it makes it very clear in your mind. If you stick that up in your office as a poster. Who's heard of Breckenridge Ski Resort? Big ski resort in the United States of America, one of the biggest for skier numbers. And I was lucky enough to do some work with them, and I walked into their office, and they have their hero, and their hero is their ideal customer. And then they have 4 target audience groups. So they're a much bigger company, and over time they've developed 5 target audience groups, but they have just one hero customer, which is where they spend the bulk of their time and their money on advertising. That's a pretty big company as well. Now they had it narrowed down to, they even had a photo of this person. Name, age, where they live, what they spend, how many days a year they ski, how much they spend in different shops, everything. Because then all the discussion about who's our ideal customer goes out the window. You don't have to worry about it. And so in some of the discussions I was just having, it's also important to remember when I talk about who's your ideal customer, you need to think about your ideal customer at this stage. For example, if we're working with a website, and let's say we sell widgets, and the person who buys the widget is the CEO. But the CEO always gets the secretary to go out and do the research. Who's our target audience? It is the secretary. when we get to that next step, that next buying step, then we need to make sure that we're targeting the CEO for that step of the process. But let's not overcomplicate things here. Yeah? I'm just talking about getting through that front door right now, finding your ideal customer. For some of you, your ideal customer is the person that goes to the website, or the person that reads the flyer is the same person that makes the buying decision. That's pretty straightforward. That's pretty easy. But don't get confused as to who your ideal customer is if you've got that multi-step process. And then ask yourself this question. If you're not the business your ideal customer is desperate to find, then what do you need to change? If you've just written about all your ideal customer just then, and you think, okay, this is great, but I can't deliver exactly what they need, then what can you change in your business to make yourself the right person for that ideal customer? It's a very different conversation to how do we develop our business and get better. It's putting yourself in the customer's shoes and asking that question, which is, what's in it for me? Stephen talked about creating a bridge. Your sole task with anything on your website or anything on your marketing is to get your ideal customer from here. I don't know you, I've just clicked on your website, or I might know you and I might have just clicked on your website to find out who you are, to here, which is, what do you want them to do? How do you get them from there to here? Now, your call to action might be, for example, let's say you sell a $1,000 widget. Ideal customer comes through the door. Hi, I'm your ideal customer. Have you got a bridge that's sturdy and strong enough to get them across to a $1,000 sale? And if the answer is no, and you can be honest with yourselves, then you need to have a shorter bridge to help people move across. Maybe it's a free consultation or a free trial or a meeting or an ebook or a video. We'll talk about that as we go along as well. But you need to create that bridge. Because I'm not going to go from, I don't know you, to here's $1,000 of my money on my credit card without enough evidence in the middle to build a strong bridge. Is everyone on the same page? Now I can see some of you are starting to think, holy crap, my bridge isn't that good. Don't justify why your bridge doesn't have to be that good. Don't justify that. Just understand that that's the truth. You need your ideal customer to look at what is on the other side of that bridge and go, I must have that now. I must have that now. I think it might be time to breathe. So I'm going to call Stephen back up. I'm going to come back after morning tea. But I am going to make one request very quickly. While you're coming up, that's fine. Is some of you have probably seen the very good-looking and not so eligible Tay wandering around. That's Tay over there with the camera. Everyone say hi, Tay. Tay is going to be helping me film some feedback testimonials here at the event. So if you've garnished any value from this morning, and I'll also be doing some at lunch as well, but if you've garnished any value from this morning, if you've had some light bulb moments, they'll just be very short, very quick grabs. I would love to hear from you. We're just going to be down the back of the room most likely. If anyone is willing to do that, no problems. I also have some Udemy courses. I don't know if anyone's heard of Udemy before, but I have 3 courses on Udemy, each $50. So $150 worth of courses. I'll give you the codes for those courses for free. One is an outsourcing course on Fiverr. One is called Psychological Secrets to Triple Website Conversions. Good title. And the third one is How to Write a Non-Fiction Book Fast Without Writer's Block. So if you would like to gather those 3 for absolutely nothing, then I will give that in return for you giving me some honest feedback on this morning. So come and have a chat to me in the break, and I would love to do that. If I get a handful of people today, that'd be wonderful. Good to see most of you came back. Saw a few people running for the door. Did we have some interesting discussions during the break? I mean, you don't have to tell me about them, but just show of hands. Did anyone have an interesting discussion during the break? Did you get, because the wonderful thing about these events, and I always talk about this with Stephen, the value is not just what I say or what Stephen says. The value is in the room. The value is in the people around you. The value is in the conversations that you have outside what I talk about. Because that's when you make sense of what I'm talking about. That's when you dissect what I talk about and you think, how can I relate this to my own business? And that's the most important thing. Not what I say, it's what you take away from it. But just remember, and I had a few conversations during the break as well, remember, don't go into overwhelm from all this stuff. Just clear everything else out of your mind and just take home one thing. Just one thing. It doesn't matter. If all it is a Skype number, which is a landline redirected to your mobile phone, brilliant. My job's done. See you later. Thanks for coming. Just one thing. That's all you need. We ready to get started with some more bits and pieces? Okay. So we're talking about getting someone across that gap. Yeah? Ideal customer. I don't know who you are to, I want you to take some sort of action. Now, I'm going to call that an opt-in or a call to action. It basically means, what do you want that person to do when they read your brochure, when they come to your website? I'm talking about websites, but you can relate this to a one-on-one conversation as well, yeah? Now, that first step, I'm going to tell you, low cost or no cost to you to offer it is always better. If it doesn't cost you anything to build that bridge for your ideal customer, that's your best case scenario. But there's all sorts of things you can use to build that relationship. I mean, just think about it for a second. We're far more likely to buy from someone that we have a relationship with, even if that's through a third party. So I just think, for example, about my accountant. And I met my accountant through another friend, sat down with him at some sort of function, and we just played around with numbers. Like, I'm a numbers guy, I love numbers. So we sat there and we went through numbers. And he showed me some things that I'd never seen before, and within a 30-minute conversation, it's like, right, you can have all my accounting done. Because he'd built that trust. He'd taken me from, I'm over here, I don't know who you are, built that bridge of trust to the point where it's like, I'm willing to make some sort of transaction with you. And it's easy to do one-on-one, much more difficult to do online. But some of the things that you can do include a discount offer. One of my favorite companies online is Surf Stitch, who do surf clothes and things like that. Started as a local business in Mona Vale in Sydney, went online, went massive. And their opt-in, I'm not sure if it is today, but it certainly was recently, was $10 off your first order. Now, if I'm their ideal customer, I'm coming to their website because I'm interested in buying surfy clothes. Yep, I don't know specifically who they are. I want to buy a pair of shorts. A pair of shorts cost $40. Their opt-in, their call to action is get $10 off your first order. Well, that's an offer I must have, right? I'm going to buy the shorts. No, I'm sorry. I'll pay full retail. I don't want to give you my name and email address. And that happens sometimes. That's fine. But for the most part, that is an ideal customer. But I don't necessarily like discounting because it cuts into your profit margin significantly. Because a 10% discount is a much bigger differentiation on your profit margin. It's a much bigger difference on what goes into your pocket. Because if your profit margin is 20% and you offer 10% off, you've cut your margin by 50%. Yeah? So I don't necessarily like doing that. I like to value add. So things like a cheat sheet or a guide. And you see a lot of these online. And look around at other websites at what they do and think, what do they do well that I like? You see this a lot in property. The 5 hotspots to invest in, or the 7 suburbs you must avoid investing in right now because they're on the edge of a bubble. Things like that. If I'm an ideal customer and I look at something like that, it's like, I really got to find out what this person has to say. am I willing to forego my name and email address in return for that? So that's when name and email address is on this side and the customer's on this side. But if it's a bigger gap between I'm a customer to I want to make a sale, maybe it's, like I said, a couple of $100s, that bridge has got to be more solid. It's got to have more planks on the bridge, more foundations. So it's got to have more meat, depending on what you want to give in return for their details. Video series is another great one, and everyone can do a video series. You've all got an iPhone, an iPad, a Samsung Galaxy 7. You can film. It's easy. So it's very easy to just kind of lean it on a bookcase and just film yourself talking about something that you know a lot about that you take for granted. Stephen and I had this conversation yesterday. I'm stunned to this day how many large corporations I sit down with, people that deal with all this sort of stuff, and they have no idea about a lot of the stuff that I know that I take for granted and that I assume that everyone knows. So what is it in your business that you know about, that your ideal customer would like to know about, that you take for granted? You could make a video series or a PDF document or something like that. I see some heads nodding. Free consultations. Free consultations are wonderful, but again, obviously there's a time factor and a cost factor to put the person in the room. A building company that I've been working with recently, they sat down, they came back from a conference and they said, I hadn't talked to them for a little while at this point, and they said, oh, Pete, they really grilled me because I didn't have enough leads coming into the website. I'm like, really? I said, okay. The opt-in offer for them is a free consultation with their architect. I said, okay, what's the conversion rate on people that have the free consultation with your architect to people that actually pay for a full build? And I can't remember the exact number, but let's just say it was 65%. It was astronomical. It's like, how many leads do you need coming into a business like a construction company that builds houses when you're converting those leads at 65% with your opt-in offer? You don't need that many, do you? So you just got to think, what is the right fit for your ideal customer? Free products. Some people like to give away free products. Again, same reason. I don't necessarily like free, but it works. Free trials, sign-ups. A lot of the big websites do this to give you a taste of what it's like to use their product. And I know a lot of people in business, and they believe in very much the power is in your consumer base before you even try and sell to them. Facebook, you don't pay to be on Facebook, but it was a long, long time of building up their database of people on Facebook before they actually started selling anything at all. They weren't making money for a long, long, long time before they started to monetize what they did. So you can think about it in that perspective as well. Run competitions. People quite often forego their details in return for an entry to a competition. I've never done that personally, but it's just an idea. Or direct contact. This is an interesting one. What this means is, again, another one of my clients, also a builder, different builder, they dealt in prestige homes, and when we worked with their ideal customer, we found out that their ideal customer didn't want a crappy download or a video series. They wanted to speak to a prestige builder with runs on the board. He had all these awards. He's a prestige builder, big images of prestige homes on his website. The ideal customer is going, I must have that. And then you can call him, go through a process. It's not, here's my mobile number, call me. You had to go through a vetting process to get his mobile number, which is simple enough for his ideal customer. And then he would get a direct phone call from his ideal customer that comes to his website. So you don't even need to give away any of this other stuff. They might just want to talk to you now. That might be a good enough call to action for a lot of people these days. It depends on what you're selling. But just think. Let's not think about it from your business perspective now. I want everyone to take off your business hat, and I want you to put on your ideal customer hat. So put yourself in the shoes of that person you've written down. Imagine you are them. Seriously imagine you are them. Don't justify why you can half be them. Imagine you are seriously them. And then I want you to think about, if they came to your website what would they be willing to give you? Email address, name. Will they pay for something? Will they buy something? Will they take some sort of other action? What are they willing to do that they look at and they go, this is a no-brainer transaction for me? I'm willing to give you my name and email address in return for that video series. I'm willing to give you my credit card to buy that intro because it's life-changing advice. I don't know. It depends. It's going to be very different for everyone in the room. You're going to think of different things that you can offer. It's building trust. How are we going to build trust? Don't think about it in respect of who you are and what you do. Think about it in respect of the ideal customer. And what would your ideal customer look at on your website and say, I must have that? Without any more info, I'm going to let you have a few minutes to play around with that, and then I'll come back and we might answer a few questions and then have another few minutes on it. So have a think about that now. We might get a little bit of music up. Have a go with that, and let's see how you get on. Okay, here's an interesting point. What you come up with now isn't what you have to stake your life on. You don't have to stake your life on this. Is that okay? Yes. What you've put down is probably, can I swear, Stephen? Shit. Who's put down something that's, you're looking at it and you're like, that's shit? I see a few heads nod. You don't want to put your hands up. That's okay. And that's all right. Just brainstorm some ideas. It's always good. Brainstorm some ideas, and this is a great conversation to have with other people at lunchtime as well, because they don't have that filter in front of their eyes about your business that you have about your own business. Yeah, I don't know why we put up that filter all the time, but we do. We just do. It's human nature. And that's okay. So I'll give you another minute or two. Now that you know that, come up with a couple more ideas. Maybe they're going to be completely outrageous. And you know that they're crap when you write them down, but it might get your mind thinking about a few other things. So I'll give you another minute on this. Anyone else stuck? Okay. Can I make one more suggestion? I just want to make one more suggestion. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Think about that for a second. Because a lot of us in business, I'm guilty of this, we lie to ourselves sometimes thinking that we're in a different position to what we actually are. But unless you know where you are, you've got no idea how to get where you need to go. Just a bit of a truth check. How did you go? Can I see some? I see a couple of twisted faces, a few kind of half head nods, a few head wobbles. I don't expect you to get this perfect right now. This is usually a process that takes quite a significant amount of time. It's a work in progress, something to think about. Have a look at some of the websites that you resonate with and what they do and how they manage to get you to bridge that gap from I don't know who you are to I've taken some sort of action to start building a relationship. Because it all comes down to that relationship at the end of the day. Okay. Should we talk about above the fold? Do you want to have a play around with some stuff above the fold on your website? Let me ask very quickly, who here already has a website that they measure and test, they're in love with it, it's really good, it's ticking along quite nicely and they're very happy with things? Okay, awesome. Cool, no problems. So for you guys, we might be touching on a few things that might be able to tweak that. So don't discount everything that we talk about. At the other end of the scale, who here either doesn't have a website or they have a website which is like that rickety old cottage by the river that needs a bulldozer through it right now? Okay, cool. So we've got a good range of people. I'm going to say that there's something in this for everyone in the room. But if you've got a website somewhere in the middle, hopefully there's some tweaks that you can make here too. This is my favorite website. You're probably familiar with this one. Why is it so good? So I don't know if Simple. Clean. Yeah, there's some colour on there. Is it pretty obvious what they're trying to get you to do? Think about your website for a second. Is it pretty obvious what you're trying to get me to do? I bet for everyone in this room the answer is no. Because you're trying to be so many things to so many people, and it's not working for you because they're getting distracted. It's like walking down the strip in Las Vegas. There's signs flashing everywhere. How do you stand out from that crowd? Google, white screen, there's your search box. If you don't search on Google, they don't earn money. Simple as that. They used to have a whiteboard in their office back in the early days. Question? Okay, interesting. The question was, I've looked at that 1,000 times and never seen I'm feeling lucky. So it's next to Google search. You've got an I'm feeling lucky box. It's been there since day one. It basically gives you the number one result on Google if you click on feeling lucky. Has anyone ever clicked on feeling lucky? Just, if you want to do it, just search your name and see what comes up. You might be a bit scared. So now the theory behind that, very quickly I'll digress. The theory behind that is options. People are always better off with options. And my sister tells a great story who deals with children in early childhood, and she talks about if you tell a child what to do, they're far less likely to give you a positive outcome than if you give a child two different options, even though both those options are favourable for you as an outcome. I'm like, oh, interesting. Started using it on my daughter. It works a treat. Happy days. Very good. So I'm not sure if that's the theory behind that, but that's what they do. So back in the early days, Google had a whiteboard in their office and it had a number on it. And that number on the whiteboard was how many words they had on their homepage. And they wanted to get that number as low as possible. I think they've done pretty well. Now, do you want a website like that? Probably not. But on the same token, I just want to tell you the direction you should be headed. Here's a business which is pretty cool, Slack. I think someone mentioned Slack this morning possibly. Slack is basically a communication tool, and this is their homepage. And it's basically got a headline with a call to action. A messaging app for teams who put robots on Mars. And that page actually builds. It's not just a static page. And the fine print says the team behind the Mars Curiosity rover is one of tens of thousands of teams around the world using Slack to make their working life simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. Email address, create new team. Simple. Is it obvious what they want you to do? Let me ask you again. Is it obvious on your website what you want your ideal customer to do? Okay? Less, my friends, is more. You don't want people to be distracted by multiple calls to action. You want one call to action which is directed at your ideal customer, because they've told you, what's in it for me? I must have that. Less is more. Who here is familiar with the concept of a wireframe? Who's ever heard that concept, a wireframe? So a wireframe is basically a mock-up, and here you can see one of mine. Don't have to worry about the details on this. It's basically just a very rough drawing layout of where things will go, and in this case, on a website. So when I do my own projects, or when I'm working with, when I was working with clients, or when I do consulting with clients, we'll generally work on a wireframe. And today, this might not be the website that you're going to use in your business, but we're just going to play around with a wireframe for your own business today and just see what you come up with. Maybe you'll come up with an idea that you might be able to integrate into your current website. Maybe this will be something, a platform that you're going to build the website on top of. So as you can see, I remember when I started in the web game and I'd hand a wireframe to a client and they'd look at me and they go, "It's pretty ugly. Can it look a bit nicer than that?" So you know what the answer is to that, right? It will look much nicer when a designer gets to it. This is just where things go. Yep. A wireframe is just like laying the pieces out. This is where they go. It's not what they're going to look like. It's just where they're going to go. But I'll get back to the wireframe in more detail very soon. We're going to start by talking above the fold. Now, is this the only way of doing a website? No. It is a way. Now, when I talked about that opt-in as well, one of the things that you need to do is you need to test it with your market. Once you come up with something, you need to test it with your market. Your market will be honest with you. They'll let you know whether it's good or whether it sucks. And then you change it, you test it against something else, and when you find the winner, you stick with that one, and then you refine it over time. But this is a great starting point for what should be above the fold on a website today. Why? Because psychology tells us. Remember those shortcuts you take in your brain? And I had this discussion during the break. If a graphic designer does a website with no idea about the psychology behind what people do, they're going to design you something that looks great. But here's my point. Just because you think it looks good doesn't mean it looks good. Think about the 1980s. We all make mistakes. So, when we're making our shortcuts in our brain, there's a few things we're looking for on a website. We expect to see a logo and possibly a tagline in the top left-hand corner. You don't have to agree with me. I'm telling you, you've seen enough websites, you know that that's the case. The navigation will be in the upper right-hand corner, and if you're looking for a phone number, that'll be above the navigation in the upper right-hand corner. Somewhere in the upper right is where you'd expect to find a phone number, or in the footer, but we're only talking about above the fold right here. Across the middle of the screen, you're expecting someone to answer the question, what the heck is this website about? What's in it for me? Yep, so this is where you might have, in this case, I've just got a video for an example. It doesn't have to be a video, that can be an image. It depends on who your ideal customer is and what they're looking for, right? Your ideal customer might be someone that comes to your website and they need a short explainer on what you do, and that's why you'd put a video there. They might know exactly what you do. They might just need an image there which relates to what their outcome is. Don't use crappy stock images on websites. It devalues what you do. But if you use genuine, authentic images that relates the ideal customer to where they want to be, that's what you need to have there. A big mistake, again, I'll use the example of the personal training business. A big mistake that personal trainers and gyms use is their image in that section is of someone sweating their ass off in a gym. What does your ideal customer want? They don't want to be sweating their ass off in a gym. They want to look great. They want to be down at the beach. They want to be with friends. They want to be social. I've seen split tests of companies where they take out the sweating their backside off in a gym and replacing it with happy and social with friends and significantly increasing calls to action. Yep. Another conversation I had in the break is sell the people what they want and give them what they need. People aren't going to admit to saying some of the things that they actually want, or they might not even know that they need them. And I know a few businesses in this room that fits into those categories. Okay, so back to our above the fold. For example, I've got a video there, could be a photo. Then I've got your irresistible offer goes here on the right-hand side. You've got basically a handful of words to write some sort of headline or some sort of offer, like the Slack website that we looked at, like that. To get people from that step, you've got their attention in 5 seconds, and then there's a call to action. Their ideal customers are going to click that, but if you're not their ideal customer, what are they going to do? They're going to leave. Great, good, goodbye. See you later. I don't care. I'm not going to spend the next 25 minutes trying to convince you of something that you don't need or you're going to be a crap customer of mine. And that's what we do in business all day, every day, because we think we need to find that customer, make that sale, get that oxygen. Rubbish. Bye-bye. See you later. And then just here under that, I've got 4 boxes, just as an example. If you don't have that banner, as we call it, covering the whole screen, you might have a couple of boxes there that have a couple of things it could have. Could have some mini testimonials, like this is awesome, you know, by Chris P. Bacon or something. It could be social proof. we've worked with companies like, remember the restaurant? Oh, they've worked with them and them and them. They must be good. Or it could be your best links on your website. I know people want to see this page, this page, this page, or this page. Now, this is when we start to also talk about someone who maybe not necessarily would be your ideal customer, but they might be a peripheral. This is for your ideal customer in the banner, but these 4 boxes pick up some of your peripherals. Yeah, because most of the time, if you look at the top of the page, you go, I'm interested. If you're not the absolute ideal customer, I must have that now, you might scroll down the page. So on that home page, you want to make sure you have just the specific things that are the absolute home runs to get people to help build that bridge. So there's a couple of ideas of what you can have there. So, if you were to redesign your business website, the question is, what would you have above the fold? And we're going to play around with this with a little activity now, so make sure you've got some paper and a pen, and just draw yourself a square as if it's like a monitor on a computer screen, and you can mock up something just like that. Yep. You're going to put the offer that we talked about, the call to action that we talked about just a few minutes ago. You're going to decide whether or not it doesn't have to be in that layout, by the way. You can move things around, that's fine, as long as your logo's up the top, your navigation's up the top. But based on that kind of theory, what sort of things would you have above the fold that you think are key for your ideal customer? Logo, tagline, navigation, contact details, image, video, irresistible offer, call to action, social proof or links. Now, how about I leave that one there, or do you want me to leave that one there? Text? I'll leave the text there for a minute. I can flick back to my very crappy wireframe in a second. But just have a play around with that. I want everyone to just draw a box. I mean, you can draw exactly what you've got on your current website at the moment if it works and if it's awesome. That's fine too. But just see what you can come up with. We'll get a bit of music on, see how you go. Just stick your hand up if anyone needs a chat. I do have to say, just in walking past some tables there, and I won't mention anyone, but I've heard some really, really good conversations. And it sounds like, for a lot of you, that this has just put a little twist on your thinking as to where you've been. And that's all I ask. And let me remind you once again at this point, once we've done all this is all good fun. We're having a good time, I hope. But at the end of it, I don't mind if you forget all this if you hear one other thing that you can take home and implement. Remember, it's all about that one thing. This is the buffet. We're just walking past the buffet. Yes, we're not eating yet. Just walking past the buffet. Hey, here's something cool. This is the first time I've ever shared this. So as of this morning, and I haven't even checked my website, but I think my developer was going live as of this morning with my brand new personal branding website. And it's version 1.0. So even for me, I know very distinctly it's a version 1.0. There's a lot of work to be done with split testing, figuring out ideal customers, where we're going. But this is where it started. This is my wireframe for my website. Yep. So I did this in a book, scribbled that up. Is it awesome or what? Do you want to know what it looks like once a designer got a hold of it? Oh, these numbers down the side basically were notes for designer. Like this is, a bar which says X, and I put the text in, but that's just the layout. And then the designer takes it and does, ta-da! The thing that I laughed my backside off about is my designer, I put a picture up here. I can't actually draw very well, so I put a picture of me with my arms out. My designer went into my folio and found a picture of me with my arms out. It's like, that's pretty awesome. So, pretty cool, huh? Wireframe to design. Now, if I kind of zoom in a bit, that's what my homepage looks like above the fold. So that's my version 1.0. I'd love to show you something that's been measured and tested and checked out, but this is my starting point. So you can see it's become pretty clear, logo in the top left, Pete Kvist, keynote speaker, a website expert and problem solver who is actually entertaining. Because my ideal customer is someone who's looking for someone entertaining in the tech area, because everyone else in the tech area is what? Boring as batshit. They're so dry. And then, of course, the one thing that they want to do is they want to see me in action. So there's a big play button that you can't miss. And if you're my ideal customer, you're going to press play. And if you press play and you go, that's cool, you're going to click the Book Pete Now button, which is basically a contact form. Simple as that. That's my call to action. There's no download. There's no anything else. Just a Book Pete Now. Because that's all you want to do. You want to have a conversation. And the video was pretty cool too, I must say, which we've worked on. And just sneaking above the fold is some social proof. Pete's clients include, pretty cool, huh? Gives me credibility. Say yes. Yes. Woohoo. Okay. So let's talk about your home page as a whole. We talked about above the fold. So now we want to talk about your home page as a whole. So what's, as people scroll down? Well, the first thing is, don't try and tell them everything at once. This is just your A material. If you can keep it to just that area above the fold and that's it, more power to you. But if you have to have below the fold, then make sure you're going to capture the attention of the ideal customers that need more detail, or those peripherals that sit right on the edge. So, other elements to consider on your home page. Headlines. Social proof. Social proof can be testimonials or Facebook followers or Twitter followers, whatever it might be. Best links. I've got my best links on my site. Call to action bars. You can never have enough calls to action. People don't want to have to look to figure out what the next step is. They don't want to have to scroll and think, oh, they had a thing to call them up here. It's here somewhere. Where is it? No, put them everywhere. Everywhere. Testimonials, we mentioned. USP. Your USP should be broken down into an elevator pitch. If I can look at your USP and say, so what, so does everybody else, you've failed. Your USP has to be unique. That's what the U stands for, unique. Yeah, remember Pat? Property stuff for people in the military. When I met him, what do you do, Pat? I do property stuff for everyone. USP. Awards, shout them. Shout them out from the rooftop. And how it works. If you can break down how what you do works into like a couple of graphics or a very couple of bullet points, I'm not talking about block text, because we said before, we don't like block text. Even details-oriented people do not like block text. It's very difficult to read, and we don't want to sit on a website and read a book. But if you can put it into bullet forms or a couple of graphics, bam, more power to you. So, for example, let's have an example for you. So, let's say you're a plumber. When I say how it works, you might have a little graphic that says, step 1, you call our office. Step 2, a plumber will be at your house within 24 hours. Step 3, our plumber will complete the job in a timely manner, in clean and professional uniform. Step 4, the plumber will clean up and leave your home tidier than it was when they arrived and leave without a fuss. You know, it just walks people through. What am I going to expect here? It's kind of showing them that window into the future. You know, if you can walk your customer through that, that's a huge bonus because they know what to expect. Especially if you do something that can be simplified by that. Especially if you do something complex that can be simplified like that. So, let's think about, once again on your page, let's draw out. You don't have to put them in order But you can draw a wireframe like that if you want to. But at the moment, just draw some like horizontal boxes, and we'll keep them as horizontal boxes because this is a trend that the web is moving towards at the moment, especially when things become responsive. It's much easier to become responsive if things are horizontal because then they can easily move vertically and what's positioned on the page stays where it should be. So if it's a horizontal box, you kind of want to think in regards to either half, so half of the info's on the left and half's on the right, or the photo's on the left, the info's on the right, or the video's on the left, or the video's on the right. Or you might go thirds, break it into thirds, or you might go into quarters, you might go into fifths, whatever it is. That's just easy for your website developer to code in the end. You don't have to worry about that stuff right now. We're just playing with this. But as you can see with this example here, there's just a whole bunch of circles there that are going to figure out where they're supposed to be. 4 boxes. Text on the left, 2/3, image on the right, and then 50-50 with some images and testimonials there, whatever it might be that you're going to do. So, have a play around with that. What are some of the other key elements that you should have on your home page which are going to help build that bridge for your ideal customer? I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a play around with that. Okay, so something interesting as well, this is a little diversion. That's something I was just talking about with Richard. And we were just saying, you know, I talked before about you've all got a phone, you can all film stuff, you know, you can all get started. But did you realize how powerful video content is for Google at the moment? It is incredibly powerful, and it doesn't have to be that good a quality either. It just has to be good content. If you can get a good quality sound, because it's all about, I'd prefer to have better sound over better vision any day of the week. And I didn't mean to go into this aspect today, and I'm sure, you know, I don't want to open that rabbit hole too deep. But if you can create some video with some good quality sound and just, you know, describe it well, which is called keywords in the fancy world, if you can describe it well, then Google want to put video responses on their homepage. That's obviously part of their algorithm now. You can see they've made the shift and they want to put video responses. They want to put image responses, video responses, and text responses on their homepage. And no one is really claiming that video space. And Richard was saying he's a painter out here in the west, and he's like, I went online to see what the guys were doing out in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and they're doing some videos. No one does that here. It's like, you know, in high school that's called cheating, but now it's called market research that we're adults. Yeah, see, if someone else is doing something that you like, then see how you can model that. Don't copy it, be original, but see how you can model that and how can you improve your own business. Everything that I talk about here, none of this is original. Like, the idea had to come from somewhere, right? So don't get stuck in that headspace of, oh, I can't, you know, use an idea because someone else is doing it. No, improve it. Don't copy it, improve it. Anyway, that's a sidestep. So how did we go with that? A little bit more challenging? Did you come up with some pretty cool elements? Is there someone that's, and you don't have to share, that's okay, but is there someone that's come up with something and they're like, okay, cool, I can see how I can move forward with this on my website now? Okay, a few of you, that's great. Awesome. Okay. So let's finish up with writing copy. Now, I'm not a copywriter. The good thing is Scott Bywater, who's coming along, is a copywriter, and he's one of the best in the country at this. But because I've been around this for so long, some of my friends who are also some of the best copywriters in the country, in the world in fact, have said, because I've spent so much time around this, my knowledge has become sound enough to be able to share it and give people a good starting point. But basically it comes down to, when you're writing copy, you just need to think about the ideal customer going, what's in it for me? That's it. That's all it is. If you get that right, write it in bite-sized chunks. If you think about your ideal customer and not about you, the business owner or manager, it's a piece of cake. So for a lot of you, you don't actually have to write copy. You don't have to write stuff for your website. You can take stuff that's already on your website because it's probably already pretty good, and you just need to tweak it, rewrite it, tweak it a bit. Instead of saying on your homepage, don't own up to this, instead of saying on your homepage, welcome to XYZ Industries, we do this and we do that. Yeah? Don't do it. But how can we convert that to something else? instead of welcome to XYZ Industries, we do this and we do that, it could say, do you need this and that? Or would this and that make a difference in your life? Are you sick of not having this and that? Which is the same stuff you've got in your current copy, but we're just tweaking it so that the ideal customer looks at it and says, wow, you know me. You know me. Okay, so let's play a little game. We're just going to play a little game, and I'll help those of you out that can't see the screen as clearly. We're just going to rewrite this headline for whatever it is your call to action was. Yep, your offer. Whatever your offer was, let's just rewrite this for your business. So here's the example. 7 extraordinary questions that will save you thousands on your new garden. Whoop-de-doo. Yep, but headlines like that convert. Don't ask me why they do. So this is what you're going to write. The first thing is context. So a number of something that we're going to give. Context, number, and then an emotion. In this case, I just said extraordinary. So 7 extraordinary, and then content type. Questions, videos, insights, products, secrets, I don't know. That will save you thousands. That's the promise. What's your promise? You know, if it's cosmetic surgery, that'll have you looking your best. If it's motorboats, that will get you free and on the water within days. And then we finish with the topic on your new garden. What's your topic area? What are you talking about? So context, I started with a difficult one here. I should have started with the easy ones. Context, emotion, content type, promise, topic. Have a play around with that one. Since I did misorder the slides, let's go to an easier one and we might come back to that. Okay. It's a longer headline, but it's an easier one. Discover how to get the greatest possible tax refund in just 48 hours without having to go through receipts. So what is this headline? It is benefit in time frame without pain point. So I want you to write down benefit in time frame without pain point. And we'll actually take a minute and I will get you to write one of these down for your ideal customer. Discover benefit in time frame without pain point. Everyone have a go. I'll give you about a minute. Hey. Who has got a headline, no matter how bad it might be? Who's got a headline? Who's got one? Who's got one? Yep. Would you be willing to share? Possibly. Hang on, we'll just grab a microphone. So this is Sophie. Everyone say hi, Sophie.
Hello. So how to prepare your property for sale in 1 week without spending a fortune.
Ooh. Is that good? Round of applause.
Thanks.
So again, you just need to think if you're the ideal customer, and when it comes to the pain point, man, drive that knife in and twist it. Yeah? People will move a lot more away from pain than they will towards pleasure. Tony Robbins says that, right? So I use a balance of pleasure and pain stuff. That just sounded wrong. Don't judge me. So when I work with clients, I like to see a mixture of these things, but test it. Test it with your market. Different markets will react in different ways. But it's just something to work on. So here's another one. Get your house spotlessly cleaned and smelling fresh every week with just one call for a cleaner. So the theory of this is get benefit 1 and benefit 2 with how you can do it. Get benefit 1 and benefit 2 with how you can do it. Or you can flip that and say get benefit 1 and benefit 2 without pain point. Now, if you get stuck on how to write some of these headlines, or if you just want some ideas, then what you can do is you can actually Google headline generator. And there's one of them, it's something /free headline generator. It's probably about the 4th result on Google, but you can have a look at all the top results. And if you check that out, you just plug in like your features, your benefits, the outcome for the ideal customer, and they craft, for free, they'll craft a whole bunch of different headlines for you. Now, a headline's not all the text that you're going to put on your website, but it's just that hook. Remember, 5 seconds. You got 5 seconds to get someone's attention, you better make it good. Saying, welcome to my website, your headline needs to be compelling enough for your ideal customer to connect. That's all. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'm going to mention one more thing before we finish up. Aside from your homepage and aside from above the fold on your homepage, the single most important page on your website is this one. Not all the time, most of the time. If you have a look at Google Analytics for probably over 90% of websites, the second most visited page is the About Us page. Now, there's one challenge with that because you, as a business owner or manager, thinks the About page is about who? You. Who's the About page about? The customer. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You need your ideal customer to look at your About page, and before you say anything about how awesome you are, you need them to read it and go, that's me, I'm in the right place, I need to keep reading. I would love to go into how to write copy for an About page. Unfortunately, it's not something that we have time to do. But if you go and look at your About page for your website, and all you do is you spend 5 minutes just rejigging some of the text that you have on there, make sure you speak to your ideal customer, make sure they understand that they're in the right place, then that will have a massive difference on how they connect with you and your business. By the way, do you have a call to action on your About Us page? Probably should have a call to action on every page on your website. Everywhere. Richard's winning. Man, I just said to Stephen, we fit a 3-day workshop into 2 1.25-hour sessions. Whose brain is full? Okay, so that's the end of it. Let's go home. All right. Now, I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope you've all gained some knowledge out of this. We've covered some pretty high-level strategies, but remember, you just need to take one thing from this. Just one thing. It's a nice buffet. We're just going to take one thing. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Awesome. Great job, Pete. Smashed it. Mate, do you want to take some questions? Has anybody got any questions? You're too overwhelmed.
Sorry, ladies, I'm married.
Yeah.
Next question.
Any more questions, gentlemen? No? All right, before you go, so Pete's got a great book. It's called Why Most Websites Suck. He's selling it down the back of the room for, it's normally, I don't know, 150, I lied.
$1 million.
$1 million. Today, yeah. Selling it for...
I'll do it for $10 cash.
$10 cash.
$10 cash.
And sign it. And it's actually a really good book. Unpacks a lot of what we've just learned here, and you can go through it again in your own time. Fantastic.
I should also mention as well, if anyone's kind of confused as to where to go from here, like how do we get this implemented, when Stephen talks about his VA stuff, we had this conversation before, and I didn't actually realise how good the fit was. But there's a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today that you can workshop when you go back to your offices, and you can hand to a VA to actually implement, which is pretty cool, leveraging your own time. You know, another way to break that cycle is, you know, one thing at a time, but it's also to have people to come in and help out. So that's a really good way to do that. If you do want to work with me, I do only have a couple of spaces left that I can do some introductory consultations this year. So that is really limited. So I'm sorry if there's a bunch of you that want to work with me. I only have a very limited space. It's just the way it is. But come and have a chat with me. We'll swap cards, and not only do I do a consultation, but I also do a package with about 40 hours worth of training on all kinds of things from Facebook, Instagram, Canva, you know, whatever it might be. Plus, there's a whole series that I did on how I doubled, which is business owners and CEOs on how they doubled their turnover within the last 2 years, with companies ranging from a few $100,000 to $50 and $60 million a year. So some pretty incredible stories. So I'll put all that into a package. If you want to work with me one-on-one, that's fine. Also, the other thing is testimonials. I'd love to get a couple more testimonials at lunch. I would be absolutely honoured, and I will throw in the Udemy courses as well. So,
yep.
Sorry, mate, I've just come up and grabbed the stage again.
All good, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on stage with us and to join us this morning, guys. Wouldn't you agree? Round of applause for Pete Kvist. Thanks, Pete.